Let's start the meeting. Paul's late.
You got a minute yet? No, 15 seconds.
Like I always told my guys, if you ain't here 15 minutes early, you're late.
Heck, we used to get here 45 minutes early. Right?
Fancy.
Most of us still are here a half hour early. Wow, I didn't know we had a drawer.
Where you been?
Just
boy?
thought you,
I got to put something in it.
just thought you broke it, didn't you?
Okay.
How are you there?
Who do we have?
Tired or something.
Renee's online, I think. Marty.
Yeah, and a nice bed is called.
Yeah, he stole my seat.
Aha.
I'll go grab another.
You sure? I'm
Yeah.
gonna stand at the podium.
Yeah, I know you will. I'll still
Okay.
grab another.
Who's over there?
That's Renee. She said she might show up. Oh,
Oh.
Nope,
Hey.
she didn't.
There.
I'm taking your table.
Why is she special?
Why is he special?
Because her name is Renee.
I'm obviously special. What kind of question was that?
You're special, all right.
It's
Wow,
good. We won't go there.
easy Rose.
Maybe longer in a week.
6:01.
You ready? Whenever you're ready, I'm just doing so.
Call the special meeting of the Cedar Springs City Council Budget Workshop on March 18th, 2021 to order. We would all stand and if you're eligible to recite the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Well, who do we all have? I have a roll call. You heard anything from Mrs. Etchison? Mrs. Conley? Mr. Gross?
Here.
Nothing from Mrs. Nixon? Mrs. Powell?
Here.
Present. Mrs. Race?
Here,
Mr. Hall? We have 4.
Have a quorum.
We have a quorum, correct? Mrs. Clerk. Moving on. Public comment. The council welcomes and encourages the public to speak during the public comment in the public hearing portion of the agenda. However, council's policy is to hear the public comment, not to act on the public comment at this time. Concerns brought before the council during the public comment portion of the agenda will be referred to the city manager for action. If, after communication with the city manager, no resolution is reached, concern will be elevated to the mayor and eventually to the council for action. Those citizens wishing to speak on agenda and non-agenda items will be allowed a maximum of 4 minutes each to address their concerns. This is the only time during the council meeting that citizens are allowed to address the council. Please state your name and address for the record if you would like. Mr. Womack, do we have any?
I apologize. I have not gotten mine open yet. Ms. Johnson, do you see anybody online who might want to speak?
Renee?
Mr. Hall, I spoke with Ms. Atchison. She has indicated she's on Northland Drive coming here.
No problem.
Join us as soon as possible.
We hear anything from Mrs. Conley or Mrs. Nixon?
I have not, but I can call them. real
That's
quick.
all right. We can, they'll show up possibly. Let's double check to make sure there's no public audience. Then I'll go into the rest of the. Just for the sake of double checking so nobody can say they didn't hear about all this work that Mrs. Falcon has done. I see that. Moving on then to 4, we have no public hearings. And then moving on to number 5, adoption of the agenda. We have a couple of motions that were added to the agenda this evening, along with the budget workshop.
And I'll apologize for that, Mr. Hall. These are all kind of items that kind of came down at the last second. I did email all the council members the furniture quote that we got for the new fire station. You know,
Okay.
Frazier and Mr. Barnes, I think, did an excellent job coming up with that quote for us. I just realized I was muted. Mr. Frazier, can you hear me now?
We have an awful echo.
Here we go. How about this?
Uh-oh.
Star Wars.
Ms. Johnson, can they hear me through this microphone? Is it set up? Okay.
Yeah.
Also then,
Can hear you.
gotcha. Okay. So Mr. Frazier and Mr. Barnes, I believe it was Mr. Barnes, did a great job in getting us a quote from Herman Miller for the new furniture for the fire station. It's really high quality stuff. I think he's gonna have that stuff for the next 20 years.
You want to speak to that when then we come to that motion? We have to approve the agenda yet.
Sure, I apologize.
No problem. Will of the council.
Making a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussions? Roll call vote. Mr. Gross,
Yes.
Mrs. Powell,
Yes,
Mrs. Race,
Yes,
Mr. Hall votes yes. Motion agenda, adoption of the agenda, consent agenda. We have 2 items added at this time. Will of the council.
Like to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as printed. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote. Mr. Gross,
Yes.
Mrs. Powell,
yes,
Mrs. Race,
Yes,
Mr. Hall votes yes. The motion carries. Mr. Womack's got up. Miss Action is here, so clerk, could you bring you up to speed? We just approved the agenda on that, so
okay.
you're still good, Chief. We're just getting ready to act on the 2 motions this evening. All right, Mr. Womack, if you want to, item A, motion to approve Kent County interlocal agreement for county designated assessor.
Thank you. So this is something that came in just in the last day or so. The county is being directed by the state to develop a local assessing option at the county level, which is not something that's traditionally done. Assessing is traditionally done at the city, village, township, local level. But I think there is some poor assessing work that's going on in some of these smaller, more rural communities. Now, we don't have that problem here. Mr. Jager's been doing a great job. But I think this has been created as a backup option at the county level. So there are some certain tests that have to be completed each year by the local assessor. And if they're not able to successfully do those tests, then the county would step in with this person to do the assessing work for you. It's one of those things that was done and we didn't have a lot of say in it. At this stage, it's just a request that we approve of the person that they've chosen.
Could this, by us going with this, require us to pay additional funds to the county for assessing?
No, not at this time. So you bring up a good point, though, and that is that the fee that would be assessed, which I think is $30 $30 per parcel, I think is exorbitant. I think that's a ridiculous amount. But we should never need that service. If the law remains the way it is currently, then Mr. Jaeger will continue to be our assessor into the future. This is only a backup option if we or any other city or village fails to appropriately do our assessing requirements.
I see. Okay, what's the will of the council on this one?
I thought when I provided the
Oh, this is a
motion for the
I'm sorry.
consent agenda, that was what we were voting on. Yes, sir.
My mistake. You're absolutely right. Both of these motions have been approved.
You may want to have the city manager make a comment on the furniture as he started though.
Yes, now, yeah, could you speak to motion B?
Sure. So as I was trying to indicate before, Mr. Frazier and Mr. Barnes did an excellent job picking out and negotiating out a purchase of furniture for the new fire station. This Herman Miller stuff is extremely high quality and should last many, many years. A significant portion of that furniture will be placed into the meeting room, which can also be used by the community for birthday parties and public meetings. So I think it's a smart purchase. We did negotiate down the price quite a bit from the first round go. So we do have the money for it, and I think it's a smart purchase.
Thank you. Any comments from the council on this? You know, being from Herman Miller, I'm sure they give us quite a break on it, and in the past, they have stepped up, and we had bought furniture for the old station, and it was very high quality, and some of it's still there today. So, hearing no other comments, we'll move on to action item, which we have none tonight. Then moving on to 8. Discussion items. The whole reason we're here this evening is for the budget workshop. We turn that over to Mrs. Falcon now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just have a short presentation for you tonight, similar as what we've done in the past. This is the proposed budget for the 21-22 fiscal year that starts July 1, 2021.
Hope everyone has looked theirs over. So if you have questions or concerns.
Just a couple charts in the beginning of the packet here, list of elected officials and management. Got our organizational chart. Next, we have millage rates. This is a very common question that we get quite often at City Hall. How many mills am I paying taxes on? So for 2021, the year we're just finishing, for non-homestead, you're looking at 64.4497 mills. If it's your homestead, you're paying 46.5325 mills. The proposed 21-22, that's really just an estimate. The only millage rates that the city sets are in the middle there, the blue section, our general fund, fire station, refuse pickup in the library. All the other millage rates come from the appropriate taxing units, and we're typically notified of them early June. The tax bills go out the 1st of July, so these are just estimates at this point. And then at the bottom there, we have the average residential taxable value. That's another question that we get quite often. So for 21-22, this is based on the assessment roll that just closed after the March board review. Average residential taxable value is $56,550.
It's quite interesting to see all the other millages that are paid through our taxes, and we have only 4. The city.
Yep.
There are 13 others. as we'll say. Thank you.
Next graph here we have is just to show people the proposed 21-22. So based on the average residential taxable value of 56,550 times that proposed millage rate, you're looking at an average tax bill of just over $3,600 for the year. Again, just an estimate at this point. Something we look at internally quite often. This next graph is the general fund. So the net of revenues and expenses is what you either take from fund balance or put into fund balance. We've been very fortunate that the last several years, we've been able to put money into fund balance. The fiscal year we just ended, June 30, 2020, we put $119,000 into fund balance. So that's money we received from, could have been taxes, state shared revenue, fire fees, whatever. We didn't spend all the revenue we took in, so we were able to put basically $119,000 into a savings account, the general fund balance. Then the next page shows you the cumulative effect of putting money into fund balance. So as of June 30, 2020, we have $819,359 in unrestricted general fund balance. So available money to spend.
Mr. Hall, I would indicate that Ms. Conley has appeared on Zoom.
So the clerk is aware.
The next two pages are, I apologize, the heading is incorrect there. It should be 21-22. It's the new fiscal year coming up here. The CIP, this is the large purchases in the funds. We kind of pull them out and look at them specifically throughout the year. Above and beyond, routine maintenance kind of items. These are your big ticket items. Starting out in the top half of the general fund there, 53,200. This is a continuation of basically setting money aside for future purchases. Multi-year, we put the money aside, and then at some point we actually, in 2026, we plan to get a new engine from the county, or a new first responder vehicle. So this is just allocating money for future purchases. The second group of items there, repaved B&B parking lot across the street here from City Hall. That's $50,000 we have budgeted. 25,000 of that is coming from the current fiscal year, 25,000 from next fiscal year. We're trying to time it in a way where we can get most bang for our buck and get as much paving done as we can when the people are in town. So that might be a prepaid, or depending on when we can get that paving done. On the slate for next year, a new generator for City Hall, 25,000. City Hall roof has been on our list for quite some time now, but it keeps getting replaced with other items. This current fiscal year, we purchased the new rooftop furnace. So we pushed the roof off till next year then. We've got 20,000 in the budget this year per the manager's request to update our recreation plan and get some things in line so we can apply for a DNR grant in the spring. Recreation plan needs to be updated every 5 years, and it's been 5 years since we updated ours last. So we have to update it before we apply for any recreational grants. And here's a big one, the storm drain payment. Our first payment will be this November, 2021, $53,000
That's ongoing.
for 20 years. That's the city's assessment.
Thank you very much, County.
Yep. And then this is our, I believe, will be our 4th year of setting some funds aside for future playground maintenance and improvements. Bill and I met this past week with folks that specialize in playground equipment. We toured Morley Park, Riggle Park, and then brought him down to Heart of Cedar Springs. Very knowledgeable individual. He's gave us a bunch of books to look at and try to pick out a few items and price some things that we can replace or update our current playgrounds and hoping they can help us with the natural playground down at the heart of Cedar Springs. So more to come on that in the future. The major street and local street, we try to list the streets that we want to do in the new fiscal year. So Fifth Street from Cherry to Pine Street, very heavily traveled road. We'll be planning to do a complete reconstruct on that one. And then the complete reconstruct for local streets would be West Church from Second to Fifth. Then it goes around the corner, Marie Street, Muskegon to Jeffrey.
On your major street, you have Seventh Street, Muskegon to Beach and Beach to, on Seventh to Fifth. That's a local.
Yeah, that's not, something got changed up there.
Oh, did I mix them
Yeah,
up?
that is
Sorry.
future.
I just caught that.
This year, we were looking at Second Street, kind of the same thing we did on First Street last year in Millenville.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm looking heavy at Church Street, could change. But Church Street from Fifth to Second is crumbling.
Church Street has needed it for a long time. I was really happy to see that when I read the packet.
So is Seventh.
Yep.
In that short stretch of beach,
That,
falling right apart.
we may not mill and fill all of or Church Street. We might
Okay.
just mill the bad stuff off, pave
Yeah.
over some of the good stuff. And that money may take us to
Okay.
that point.
I'm
So,
sure.
Can it be mill and filled? Because it looks really bad. I'm worried that it was like turning rubbleized.
That's basically what mill and fill is. They
Oh.
mix the old asphalt down to the gravel and then
Resurface. Okay.
Okay.
Hey, Bill, while we're talking about it, though, could you talk about, what was it, the chip seal that you were mentioning from last time?
Chip and seal.
yeah, there's money in the budget. Do you have that?
Could you explain the process and what it is and how it's a price reduction?
Yeah, so we're looking at trying to maintain some of our streets. I think we did 30,000 local and 30,000 major for
Yep.
this
Mhm.
coming budget year. And not necessarily chip seal. They have what they call an ultra thin, which is a step up from chip seal.
Yes.
It's about 3/4 of an inch of pavement on a road that's still in decent shape, but starting to fail. You can get up to 10-year,
Additional.
additional lifespan on the road. And it's running about 2,300 a block. So it's for 10 years, it's a very reasonable option. And looking at stuff like Prairie Run, the west side over here, possibly West Street after they finish the industrial park on the end of it, and several others that would be a vast improvement and extend the longevity of it.
10 years is a big step,
Yep.
big. Thank you.
Next up, we have our sewer fund. 85,000, the top three items there, those are updates at our wastewater treatment facility. We try to give the plant about $85,000 a year to update capital items. The plant is a very heavily,
A lot of maintenance.
maintenance and big ticket items.
Well, it's been in a process for 25+ years.
Yep.
So things are starting. Life expectancy is only like 10 to 15.
So we're continuing to rehab some of that stuff. And then this will be the second year that we're trying to reserve 50,000 cash for the future drain field. Next, we have the water fund. The top one there, that's just listing our annual tower contract payment. $24,000 there. The big one this year for the water fund is a new 12-inch water main from Muskegon by the high school, $160,000. It's been on our list for a little while. Want to add anything to that, Bill?
No, well, yeah, I guess this would also be working towards the possibility of a new tower on the school property somewhere. So we're just taking a step in that direction also by doing.
Is this closing a loop?
Yeah, we
Yes.
only have one line that runs out of,
The welfare.
10-inch line runs out of 4 and 5, which doesn't allow us to run those two wells simultaneously. We can only run one at a time.
Yes.
This will also allow us to run them simultaneously and push fresher water probably to the south end of town by doing so. It's just something that's been needed probably from even Jerry's time. I think it was.
That was on my wish
Yeah.
and want list also. Plus, it gets another line out of that well field in case we have a line failure.
Yep.
The only well we have to maintain the system is number 3. And that's very old.
Yeah, they did on a project in, I think it was 2015, they ran
Yes.
12-inch out of the well field down, which would be 17 mile there to the school drive. This would basically, and that line dumps into a 4-inch.
Yes.
It's a 12-inch, which doesn't really work. You get a bottleneck kind of situation there. The school's all 12-inch running out the main street. It's just a perfect scenario.
Big project though, $160,000.
Yes.
Uh,
Go ahead.
Lastly, on our list here is the equipment fund, the Peterbilt loan payment. I think this is our 3rd year on that. We have 2 more to go, 20,130. And then these are the next 2 items on our list. We would like to reserve 33,000 towards a new dump truck and 30,000 towards a new backhoe, but we just don't have the cash in the equipment fund to do that. Just wanted to point it out, bring it to your attention. These items are on our list. We would like to purchase them in the next 2 to 3 years, but we might have to wait till the Peterbilt is paid off, then do another loan, buy one, pay it off over, 5 years like we did this one. So $973,950 in capital outlay items. I'm gonna skip this one for now. When we talk in each fund, it's just kind of a quick picture, lists each fund that we have. And if there's net positive or net negative to what we're proposing for revenue over expenses.
I would just like to say, Darla, that you put together a really readable, easily understood budget. And I really appreciate all of the pictures of the streets and so on that you put in there. Having done budgets under other budget directors and for other organizations, including the library and the school, yours is exceedingly easy to understand.
Thank you. A municipal budget is not the easiest to understand, so the easier we can make it for the public to understand, just benefits everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So we start out in the general fund. The 2 largest sources of revenue to the general fund are taxes and state shared revenue. So we are proposing real property tax revenue this year, $1,360,670. And state shared revenue, we're looking at $360,000. Total revenue, though, we're looking at $2,300,385.
Mhm.
A lot, the general fund revenue comes from many different sources. And it pays for a lot of stuff. So all of this $2,300,000 revenue covers all of these following departments now. City Council, pretty flat budget this year. We added $2,500 for some strategic planning sessions, hoping to do that this summer. And left $2,500 in there for training. A lot of training is virtual these days, but if there is something that council would like to go to, we did leave some funds in there for in-person training too.
I need more training. How to get out of this.
Too late. So city manager, pretty flat budget. Most of the departments, I'll point out the highlights, but pretty similar budget as this year. The difference in here, we put 6,000, Mike requested we put in 6,000 professional services. Not sure how it's all gonna work out yet. A proposal to have An intern?
Yeah, so there's two organizations that will pay for a significant portion of a intern. The city's portion will be 6,000. But I believe CDAM has, I think they pay 60,000. And then the MML, I think they pay 24,000. So it's something that I've wanted to do, but it doesn't make a lot of sense because, you know, I try to be as cheap as I can. But we've gotten to a point where we've got a lot of big projects, the RRC being one of the big ones.
Yep.
That I really could use some assistance on. So this is something that we're only going to spend if we end up getting that intern. Otherwise, it would revert back to the general fund, or we could find something else to do with it with the council's permission.
That seems like a really good leverage of funding also.
Yeah. We've discussed this in the past too, of getting an intern, so good luck.
We've had a couple, just for credit.
Yeah.
They weren't paid internships, but
This will help. Free up.
yep. We have elections next. Again, pretty flat budget. This depends on how many elections, you know, the state requires us to hold every year. Our next one will be in August 2021, and then November 2021.
Yay.
Yep. Auditing, we are required by law to have an annual audit. This is not the total cost of the audit. Some of the bill is distributed amongst other funds. Assessor, this is what we were talking about at the beginning of the council meeting. We contract our own assessor, Brian Jager, so that's professional services there through Grand Rapids Township. Other than that, pretty flat budget.
Mhm.
City attorney, this is basically a guess. Got 20,000 this year. Through December, we paid almost 10, so looking at another 20. Hope we don't have to spend 20,000, but it's got to be something in the budget that we need. It has to be there if we need it, so,
If we stay out of trouble, we won't.
right. City clerk, again, pretty minimal, pretty similar budget as current year. Nothing major there. Order review, a little increase. Brian was telling us that starting in 2021, anybody that sits on the board review, they have to go to required training. We have to send them. We have to have a board review, so beyond our control.
Yeah.
Hoping that would be 500 at the most. So,
We plan on, the board of review persons are planning on attending and retaining them, hopefully.
we have 3 active that were just here at March board review. They all said they would attend the training.
Great, good to hear that. Thank you.
General administration. This one, we're kind of back down to our 1920 level. In current fiscal year, that EDA bond, we had expenses up front that we had to cover, but now hopefully in the 21-22 fiscal year, we'll get the bond money to cover those expenses. So that won't be a direct expense out of our general fund. So 92,000 down to 69,000. 69 is down around normal there.
You have one item in the red for last year, allowance for bad debt. I paid my water bill.
I don't remember what that was for.
Okay.
Next, we have IT department. Pretty flat budget here. We have a contract with our IT company. We're pretty much all set with computers. This is just really maintenance. We do lease our postage machine and copier machine. That's our annual required payments. We need internet, of course, but no capital outlay items for the IT department.
That additional costs we have for the Wi-Fi in the community, would that come out, that comes out of Public Works and Parks, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Nope, we put that in city buildings and grounds.
Okay. community
Next item.
promotions.
You'll see to the right there, Wi-Fi to parks, 1,500.
Yep,
So a couple items down from that. Here's the 50,000 for for the paving of the B and B parking lot across the street there. 25,000 from the current fiscal year, 25,000 from the new fiscal year. And then the two larger capital outlay items there, the generator for 25,000 and the roof for 40,000. Current year, we had 30,000 for the furnace. Well, 30,000 was the CIP budget for city buildings and grounds. The furnace only cost us 12,424. It's not reflected in here because we just paid the bill last week, so be some savings there.
Mr. LaRose, do we have a reasonable idea what that B and B parking lot is gonna cost?
It's gonna probably be in the 50 to 60,000 range, I'm guessing. I should say 40 to 60, depending on, we might get even more of a break if we catch them when they're here doing Second Street or something. That's kind of the plan.
Yeah, because the mobilization costs are 10% of the project and
Right,
Yep,
right.
yep.
And what I'm thinking the best route to do with that is to bid out for our paving on Second Street and then talk to the contractor after they get the bids. So,
and Ms. Falcon, doesn't the
Bundle 'em.
DDA have, I think, 5,000 in the budget
Yes.
for, okay. So we could put that towards this or something else.
Yep.
Overrun.
Next, we have our cemetery.
Hmm.
Pretty similar budget there. A lot of mowing there, mowing and maintaining, cleaning up.
Yep.
I actually thought the budget for that was really small, considering what, I mean, how big it is and how much has to happen. And I was like, wow, they can make that happen with that much.
Done it for years.
Yeah, I think the DPW department has a lot of accumulated knowledge about how to keep costs down out there. So they do a ton of work, but they've done an excellent job of keeping their costs low.
Mhm.
I do have a question. On the cemetery itself, I believe there's only twice that it actually gets weed whipped or whatever. Is there a way that we can look at doing that at least for holidays, but even maybe one or two more times? I think it gets a little crazy in the spring, in the fall, but I don't know if that's part of
Do
this.
it
or-
for Memorial Day.
Done
I
for-
know.
It's done by Memorial Day.
Right.
The cemetery itself, string trimming it isn't really, I don't think, a money problem as much as it is a staffing problem. We have other things that come up and we just don't have the people to send out there for the amount of time it takes to get done. It's a 3-day process to string trim the cemetery.
Sure. Okay, just a question. Thank you.
Next, we have the police department. We contract with Kent County Sheriff's Department. Just a little bump in the wages there. The bigger jump here is the MERS payment. This is when we had our own police department, we still have a liability
Mhm.
when those people retire for their retirement portion. This number comes right from MERS. Current fiscal year, we're paying 31,200. Starting July 1, that, the whole year we'll be paying 43,600. Other than that, pretty much the same. Fire department is next. Marty put a lot of these numbers in, a lot, we just really don't know. Gas utility, water utility, electric expense at the new building.
Yeah.
We kind of guesstimated, once we get a year under our belt, we'll go
Well, we
from
can,
there,
Yeah, we can do a good guess estimate of what it's gonna cost and
right?
we have to make an adjustment this fall or next year then.
Yeah, budget amendment throughout the year, probably.
Correct.
We were notified yesterday, we currently pay like $360 insurance for the current fire station. Insurance
Going
for the
up.
new fire station is gonna be close to $4,000 a year.
Yep.
So stuff like that, I mean, we don't know until we know, so
Yeah.
we'll have to amend that throughout the year.
I'm
Mr.
sure there'll be
Gross?
more.
At the last meeting, Mr. Gross, you and I discussed the potential of adding in some additional funding for training. Did you
Correct.
have an amount that you were thinking about?
I did not have, because I didn't have time, I would have had, didn't have time to take and do some resource checking, but
Well, so for the moment in time, then I would simply mention that because this doesn't necessarily represent the final of the budget.
right.
So we may introduce a small training budget into this section. And I just want council to be aware of
I
that.
think it would be beneficial. It'd be, of course, up to Chief Frazier as to what he thought also. But I think there's various programs and stuff that they might be able to bring somebody in on
Yeah.
and do a little additional training.
So we'll look into it and possibly add it in for your next draft.
One of those I had in mind was because of the, and possibly Chief Frazier has already covered this somehow, but the fact that we now have the hotel, you're going to be dealing with high rise more than we did in the past. And probably some time spent practicing having to make extrications from the upper stories, things of that nature may mean we have to bring somebody in to help work with that.
I have a question for the fire department, a line item. Now, in the event that we rent that room for training and whatever, where would those funds go? Put it. in-
General fund revenue
Okay,
would create a new account number,
okay.
and track that separately.
I was wondering if it could be applied to the fire budget for maintenance and ongoing
Mhm.
increased costs.
Maybe that would cover the cleaning line item or.
Yes.
Yep.
That's what I'm thinking.
Mhm.
Just a thought. Thank you.
Next, we have our code enforcement. Pretty flat budget there as well. We have planning and zoning. So what we added for this department for the new year, $50 a meeting throughout the year. I budgeted 4,200. If everybody took the payment to be on the planning commission, I've already been notified. 2 members are wishing not to receive payment, so, but there's many that I haven't heard from yet, so starting July 1, we'll budget to pay them. Here's the 20,000 for the master plan, rec plan. And then, once we get into that process and even strategic planning, if the planner has to come in,
Yes.
I've got 8,000 in there for the planner as well.
We got coming up where we have to update our master plan here real quick. Our end of the 5 years is soon coming.
I think the current goal is to get through this recreation plan because of the DNR grant.
That's the
in
first step we have to
April
do.
22, but I think we're going to end up doing strategic planning this year, which will help inform us of the master plan next year.
Just so the council's aware, there's going to be strategic planning set up for the council here. We need to get that rolling. We had put it off for many years because of COVID set us back another year. So that's one of the things we need to get accomplished before too soon, or much longer. Just so everybody's aware.
The plans for this summer, right? Like
Well,
June?
hopefully, yes.
Yeah, it would be after July 1 sometime, but yeah.
Okay, after July.
Make it after November.
No way.
I'll come.
Next, we have street lighting. We're hoping this is gonna go down someday when more LED bulbs get put in. 2020, we're halfway through the year.
Yep.
We're only at 16,600, which is less than half, so hopefully we won't have to spend 42,000 on it.
This doesn't include our Main Street.
No,
I just want to make that note.
but that's up, changing the bulbs in the city is not,
We've,
they said as they burn out, they'll replace them or update
yeah,
them,
they
whatever.
replaced 2 of them on our street and they're nice.
Yeah.
right.
Community promotions, there's a lot of fun stuff in this one. Here's where the amphitheater concerts are. Halloween bike race, historical museum, red flannel, summer reading program. Numbers in there for all those again this year. Pretty flat budget again, but all those things are still included.
I would make special note of the $1,000 for historical photo, although I think that's an interesting choice of words. This is a project that Shandell and I are working on. I was in Ada Township not too long ago and saw that they have some historical photographs and a little blurb about the history of the city and the history of the photograph, and they place them throughout their community. So I think this community has some wonderful old buildings. And I'd like to showcase that for the public, because I think there's a lot of people who walk up and down the street and have no idea how old and how historical some of our buildings are. So we're working on trying to put a few of those together with the museum. Ms. Jet down there has been very helpful. So hopefully we can get that accomplished this year with way less than $1,000.
Okay. I have a question or a concern more than anything. For the Red Flannel Festival, we're allowed 9,500. In years past, we had set a deal where it was like 5,500 and it really skyrocketed. And I think Mrs. Nixon is in conversation with the festival, hopefully to, again, I would like to see a cap on that somewhere.
Yep. So this is, and unfortunately, I just haven't had the time, but at some point, we're going to have a new red flannel agreement
Yes,
that I'll be working on with Ms. Nixon with the Red Flannel Festival. And of course, the end goal is simply to be fair.
oh, absolutely.
As you've indicated, when I started, it's almost 5 years ago now, we set aside $6,500.
Yes,
So when Ms. Falcon puts down $9,500, she's not encouraging us to spend $9,500.
no, but
She's simply reflecting that the year previous is what was spent.
correct.
And to go from 6,000 to 9,500 in less than 5 years is an exponential growth, which is simply
Yeah.
not sustainable.
Well, my concern is it's like, we have no cap on it, so let's say, you know, they can go and get anything. It's no different than sending your child to college with a credit card. Turn them loose and, you know, obviously some of them don't realize we have a fixed budget too.
Yep.
And I think just to keep their concerns to try to be cost effective as possible.
Sure. And the current board of the Red Flannel Festival are very reasonable individuals. They're easy to
They
work
are,
with.
they all are.
And I believe we have a meeting coming up with them soon. We do a yearly meeting,
Yes,
usually in March or early April. I'd have to look at my calendar, but I'm sure we'll talk about that. And
thank you,
eventually we'll have an agreement for council to review and approve.
thank you.
Next, we have the budget for the parks. So here's where you'll see the 8,000 reserved for future repairs and maintenance of the playgrounds and stuff. We also have 2,000 in here for tables and benches throughout the parks. And the rest is just maintaining.
Those tables in the park were here when I came.
Wow.
They're antiques.
We replaced the
Newer one.
boards, but painted many times.
There's one thing about the dog park I was hoping to have, when it gets really dry and the grass dries and stuff, maybe our fire department would go over and spray it for a practice or something, keep the grass in check and healthy. 'Cause it's
Dissolve-
gonna get worn out.
Well, to dissolve the,
Well, I was gonna
Residue.
say, please let me go in and pick the poop up first. Because it
Fertilizer.
is way easier to clean up when it's dry. And I was out there, I picked up 30 bags of dog poop 2 weekends ago. I know that Miss Conley picked up, I think, 10 or 15 bags the other day. So unfortunately, some people are not picking up after their dogs.
Sounds like several.
Do we have a sign that says?
We've
Oh,
got
yeah.
multiple signs.
there's many in those bags.
Of course, if you use the dog park, you know you got to pick up after your dog. That's just a part and parcel. Take
I think it'll get better once the snow, now that the snow is gone. I think there is a certain amount of like, when the snow is deep and your dog poos, people would just, I don't know, out of sight, out of mind.
But Ms. Powell, to your point, one of the issues that we frequently see in dog parks is that the dogs do destroy the grass. So I can see it already on the north side of the asphalt patch that's there. And so that's something that I think Mr. LaRose and I are going to monitor, because you can't force grass to grow. It's just impossible. I've tried. So we might end up replacing that with some other type of material that's a little bit more resilient, wood chips or pebbles or something, so that where the dogs do frequent, it just won't be grass.
Well, the acidic nature of the deposit
That also,
and
yes.
to kill the grass.
But I'm sure that Mr. Frazier has no problem spraying down the grass if they want to target practice, I guess.
Wake him up. Thank you.
Next, we have unallocated employee benefits, just a department where this doesn't fit anywhere else. Workers' comp for DPW, and then a portion of their uniform expense. And then here's the new big one, debt service. Here's the $53,000 payment to the drain for the drain assessment. And lastly, transfers out. These are our, when you have a general obligation bond payment, you have to transfer the funds to a general obligation fund and cut the check out of there. So this is just transferring 2 loans at choice one, and then our new fire station loan cash actually goes to the general obligation fund, and the checks are cut out of there. We do have 5,000 budgeted in here, transfer to sidewalk fund. We're gonna try to apply for a CDBG grant. Applications are due December 2021. So this is to have our engineers help us if we need a formal plan or something that we can't just put together on paper for the application. They can help us prepare that for us, apply in December, and then we'll know in spring of 2022 if we receive the CDBG grant from the county. And our target area this year is the west side of Main Street. Bill, do you remember offhand, like how many blocks or
I know what we were thinking of in general. I don't know how many blocks it was. but-
similar to the east side?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
were looking at the whole length of Second Street, the whole length of Fifth Street. And then it was, I believe, Church between Fifth and Second. And I wanna think it was Cherry between Fifth and Second. And then there was a couple other things we looked at too, running into the dog park. A couple other areas that are just there. So.
Mr. LaRose, would it be fair to say that your goal and intention in picking those areas is to, I guess, improve pedestrian traffic throughout the community?
Exactly. There are areas that the sidewalk on Second Street is there, but it's in poor shape. There is no sidewalk to get you from Pine Street to Muskegon Street. The problem there is the bridge. We may have to go into Fifth Street to get around the bridge for now until that bridge is redone, or maybe we can do a pedestrian bridge in the future or something like that.
That's it for the general fund. Anybody have any questions on the general fund?
Looks good.
Right, moving on to Major Street and Local Street. So the 2 pictures, the kind of the 2 worst streets, that's why they're at the top of our list this year. Fifth Street from Cherry to Pine with a semi on it, which it should be, that's fine. Our street funds, that's our Act 51 gas and weight tax is where the money comes from to fund our streets. The money that we get, 75% of it goes to Major Street and 25% goes to local streets. So major streets, we're looking at 381,000 in revenue and 103,000 in local streets. But to accomplish what we have here, we do need to transfer a little bit from fund balance. For the Major Street, we're looking to transfer 58,000 from fund balance. And we have 475,600 in fund balance. So 58,000 without, we still have plenty of money in reserves. And on the local street side, we're looking to transfer 125,000. Seems like a lot. We have 250,000 in fund balance, so would be taking about half of that. But I think our streets, everybody would agree, need it.
Yeah,
So,
we discussed this at length, and having money in the bank is great, but having nice roads is better.
Yes.
And, you know, the council has a policy of keeping 20% of its general fund in fund balance. We are very heavily exceeding that in our general fund. These changes, these transfers out of major and local, I don't know what the percentage is on the major, but local, we're still going to be what, a full year's expenses in fund balance. So I think it's a very appropriate thing to do, draw down on it to get some work done.
We put off the surfacing road projects for too many years. It's time. The costs
Not
are-
concern of the
costs-
citizens for as long as I've been on council that we need to put more into our roads. So I'm really glad to see that we're doing that. Sorry, my dog.
I believe Baxter has the voice of the citizens as well, and it's obviously a concern of his.
Yes, he's barking his agreement. We need to fix our roads.
Right. Rubbish. This rubbish.
Rubbish collection. We currently levy a half a mil. That's what we're planning to keep it at. Not raising that at all, a half a mil. And we will be able to do hopefully what we've been able to do in the past. Leaves in the fall and brush in the spring and brush in the fall.
This fund is very difficult to predict. Sometimes you get one good storm and it can
Yep.
throw everything out of flux. We had a couple of big storms last year and we were able to keep costs down by asking the citizens to deposit some of that detritus over in Morley Park. That kept our costs down quite a lot. So, but again, I think we're okay, healthy with the fund balance, and we just kind of have to take this fund as it comes each year.
Next is our DDA fund. They are continuing little by little every year to collect a little bit more in the DDA capture. Looking at $38,330 in tax capture for the new year. So again, they're going to be able to continue a lot of good things that they've already started. Banners, public art, flower boxes, streetscape. Like Mike had mentioned earlier, they do have money in here to help us with the B&B parking lot as well, so.
I'm quite happy and very proud of the work that the DDA is doing. I know for many years, 10 years almost, the DDA had no income except for what the city council granted them each year.
Yep.
So I believe that was $1,500 per year. Unfortunately, that board met once a month to just kind of talk about what to do with $1,500. So $38,000 this year. Last year was just barely 25. They're getting a lot of stuff done. I'm really happy to see all the artwork, murals, signage. They're accomplishing a lot, and I'm happy to see it.
The new DDA is really moving forward. Things are looking very good.
Next, we have our library fund. I'm on the finance committee with Donna Clark, the director, and two other board members. We met, put this budget together, and the library board actually looked at this twice, I believe, and then now it's before you tonight. So the library board has already approved this. They are looking at taking just over 18,000 out of their fund balance to meet their expenses this year. I don't have their fund balance written down in front of me, but from my memory, they have well over 250,000 in their fund balance, so 18,000
Minimal.
they said was fine. Yep, but doing well. The city taxes that they collect, and then the Solon Township portion is the largest sources of revenue for the library. So this is the general obligation fund I talked about earlier. The general fund money has to come to this fund to make these bond payments. You'll see on this sheet here, we did pay off two loans, the 2005 installment loan and the 2006 installment loan were just paid off, so you won't see them anymore. But what we added on here was the new fire station payment. So.
Ms. Falcon, the 2005, 2006 loans, were those just simply being paid out of the general fund?
Correct.
Yes.
And if
to
I'm-
purchase those properties.
And if I'm reading this correctly, that's 20,000, about 22,000 bucks per year.
Yes.
Mhm. We have a few more coming off. Ooh, I think. But
These two choice one loans, do I have the payoff year in here? 2023
yeah,
Main Street Improvement in 2027.
Yeah.
Couple more years.
yep, that's revenue to convert over to the county or the fire station.
The 455 fund, West Street Utility Fund. We created this when you have a large project like this West Street Utility Fund, it covers multiple fiscal years. It's just easier to track in its own fund. So if we get the bond, after July 1, it'll all go through this fiscal year.
Mhm.
$1.5 million between the EDA grant of 872,000 and then the city authorized to borrow up to 700,000 would get that utility project done.
Bad we couldn't get that transfer to the major street, but we tried, but we can't get the traffic count.
Mm,
Now with 3W gone out of there, the traffic count, truck traffic is a lot lighter.
But if we get some new businesses in there, maybe it'll
That's
go back
exactly.
up.
Thank you.
So sewer fund is next. Like I mentioned earlier, the treatment plant is a big portion of this fund, as well as all the infrastructure throughout the city. Plan to put a new generator in at the West Street project. And you'll see the 85,000 for the treatment plant in capital expense. A lot of depreciation in the sewer fund. 203,000 in depreciation. It's a non-cash item, but you have to budget for it.
Yep.
So for the sewer fund, we're looking to transfer 80,000 from fund balance, and they have well over $1 million in their fund balance. The two loans that they have, Isabella Bank and USDA, come out of here as well.
And not that it matters, of course, but as you indicated, there's $203,000 in depreciation costs, which is not actually something that's being spent.
No,
So even though we are transferring $80,000, it's
In.
technically 120 to the good, right?
right.
So it's not as bad as it seems, but depreciation is something we do have to do every year.
Yep.
Next is the water fund. This one, on the other hand, we're able to put money into fund balance, just over 40,000. What are the big ones in here? Oh, the $160,000
Water main
new main.
and 7,000 for meters. Where
Yep,
we at
reserving
on
that
our-
for the future.
Where are we at with our meter exchange? Are we getting
It's done, Jerry.
good? This
Meter
is the
exchange has been
maintenance.
all done, but like Darla said, we kind of want to start to put money towards the next meter exchange.
Correct.
So we have it set aside.
Yeah.
Keep up with technology. They keep changing the meters every year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Get done, start over.
Yeah.
Mr. LaRose, what's the average lifespan of one of these meters?
They figured 15 years.
Yep.
They're warranted for 10. So at I'm saying between a 12 and a 17-year life cycle is when you really want to start thinking about getting these things replaced.
You know, I hear you say these technologies changing. I wanted to go years ago, auto read, and they said that was just a trend.
Aw,
Well, it's still here.
yep.
Yeah, I guess.
Hey, Mr. LaRose, while we're talking about it, because this was a huge thing a year ago,
Yes.
you talk for 5 seconds about the difference that the auto reads have made to the DPW department.
Major.
Well, we're reading the meters and at a guess, I think it takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours to do the whole town, where we had the town divided into 4 books. When I first started here, we used to use a pencil and write down the actual number you saw on the outside. Then we went to a touch read system where you carried a handheld and would touch it. But basically from 4 days to 3 hours at the max, yeah. And what she likes to do when she reads is she'll take that if she's going somewhere.
Rereads.
She'll take the read while she's heading there, or heading somewhere else. So it really works out well.
Yes, it's a major time saver. And labor costs. Good trend we got into.
So here's a few nice pictures of some of our equipment that we have that we're maintaining. Basically just a maintenance fund. We're trying to maintain what we have. Put a couple dollars aside to replace what we need in the future.
Come a long way.
And because we have a cemetery, we have to have a perpetual care fund.
Yep.
That money can't be spent on anything but the cemetery, perpetual care. The cemetery is not ours?
Nope.
Whose is it?
No.
No. We don't have headstones like that.
Oh, that cemetery is
Yeah.
not ours. I see what you're saying.
No, we don't have that many military grave markers, at least.
No, we do not.
In that good a shape.
Put that on your list. I need a picture of our cemetery.
Okay.
Any questions?
That concludes our budget review. Counselors, any questions or concerns of Ms. Falcon? Must be a good presentation. Nobody's
Yes,
talking.
thank you very much.
Well done, well done.
It was
Lot of work.
wonderful. My only concern would be at the top of the link that we put out to the public, it says the meeting is at 7. So
Yep.
I'm actually late because when I went through the budget today, it said it was at 7. So we might want to, I don't know, put a note of that.
And I apologize. I did see that after you mentioned it to me. I did check the foyer and the.
Right.
city
And you
website.
said, and the posting, and obviously it's after 7 o'clock now. So anybody that would want to be here can be.
Yep.
But we should just, if people are trying to look at the Zoom link later and the timestamp is confusing, like, I don't know if we need to change it or make a note of it.
Correct it. Thank you.
Just start over.
Yeah. Start over at 7.
Cause I know my students will go look for timestamps on Zoom links that they missed that they want to watch.
I would also point out that Ms. Nixon has been in contact with me and she indicates she's rushing home to join the meeting right now. And I said, well, I'm just a few minutes late. I believe she was at work.
I think we're at discussion items. We have budget workshop and I think we passed that. Communications and it's the budget workshop public notice. I'm sure that was posted. We have no departmental reports. We're at this time, we're at council comments. Ms. Atchison.
Just appreciate all the work you do, Darla, and how much easier it's getting to understand, and that's a lot to do with, like she said, your reports. So thank you.
Mrs. Conley.
Yeah, that's just my, and I've read a lot of these. I mean, I was on the library board, I was on the school board, and Darla is not our first finance director. And the legibility, the understandability, I don't know if that's a word, but the ease of being able to just read this is dramatic compared to other budgets that I have read. And it's not that the municipal budget is not complex. It's that you have organized it in such a way that it's relatively easy to follow. And that took some real skill on your part, in addition to your skill in just math and budgeting. So I'm very appreciative of that. And I really appreciate the transparency for how you put it out there and put it out there early so that everyone in the community can see it. And I think the pictures are wonderful. We'll try to see about getting a picture of the cemetery. So it's our cemetery.
They're all the same.
They're all the same. Oh dear. Oh dear, Mr. Mayor. You did not say that.
Mr. Gross.
I appreciate the way it's presented. I really do. From the first budget that I attended, not knowing anything about it, maybe know 50% now. But it reveals something different each time to me in learning in the process and how it goes. It is laid out very well. The departments and everything, the work that they put into it as far as bringing their numbers together and allowing it to present, the way they look after the city's money, I truly appreciate. I did have one question, however, though, with the discussion about the parks and stuff. I didn't see anything possibly being laid aside for the splash pad that we keep hearing about. If we're looking to do that, maybe we should start looking at putting some funds away for it. So the dream of having it doesn't seem so elusive. It looks like we've got something we're beginning to grab onto. And I understand you can't really plan for something you don't know what it is yet. But it would just be nice to see some of that if that's what there's plans for.
Yep, so we have a reasonable idea of what these things are gonna cost. The splash pad that was put up in Sparta a year or two ago cost about $150,000. We would like to do a splash pad and multi-stall bathroom at the same time, which is now close to about $300,000. So the city wants to get a Michigan DNR grant, which we should be pretty much a shoo-in at this point, because I don't think the city has got a Michigan DNR grant since the early 80s. But those MDNR grants are only good for about $150,000. So we just simply haven't figured out how we want to do it at this point. Now, the DNR grant that we're anticipating applying for would be April of 22 to be spent, I think, in the next fiscal year after that, 23. So I honestly don't know how exactly we're going to do the payment for it under the current situation. And that leads me into the next thing, which is we are trying to be extremely conservative right now with the anticipated marijuana revenue. I believe we put about $53,000 anticipated in the city's budget from marijuana this year. It is possible that we could see as much as $200,000 come in from marijuana this year. If that's the case, we're going to have a lot of money left over at the end of the year. And we should have money left over moving into the year's future. So, you know, I've tried not to say it out loud, but the pots for playground idea, where we take a lot of the money that we're getting and we start doing these things that are to a public benefit, like the parks, like splash pads, like, you know, that kind of stuff. Because I don't want to use this money, if we get it, for recurring costs. You know, we should pay for our recurring costs with property taxes. But new playgrounds and stuff like that, which is usually a one-time purchase, I think would be a perfect thing to spend that kind of money on. So that's kind of half of it. And there's a number of other mechanisms we can use to pay for it. But as you saw, we're kind of in the bad right now. Ms. Falcon, what are we, 30,000 to the bad right now in general fund?
That's not bad.
Which isn't bad, but you know, we're putting $8,000 aside for the playgrounds each year. We're what, year 3 of that, year 2 of that. So we do have some money, but paying for playgrounds is difficult. There's just not a lot of grant opportunities available.
Thank you.
Mrs. Powell.
Thank you again to everybody. It's just so nice to be able to tell my constituents and people ask me about taxes and so forth, that we have a group of people in the city and our staff that we can trust and know that they're doing the best thing for our city and our people. And that's what I appreciate most, is the trust I have in you folks that are in there doing the business for us, and thank you.
Mrs. Race.
I don't want to sound like a parrot. Do I sound like a parrot?
Okay, moving on.
Thank you for all the work that you guys put into this, Darla. I love pictures, so I appreciate them. It just really helps not only me, who's pretty new to this still. I think it'll help our residents, and I appreciate everyone's time on this.
Thank you. I too, Ms. Falcon, I've sat through many budgets and I've been on the other side of the table where I put hours into your budget. And I know what goes into this thing, and your budget is very clear and legible and easy to decipher and know where everything goes by the line item and account numbers. I used to have to plug in all the account numbers on all the bills, so I know. And there's a lot of work going in there behind the scenes from all the staff, putting their budgets together, like, for instance, fire station, pulling out the magic number of what it's gonna cost to operate that building for a new year, new operations. That's a pie in the sky, so that's where we will be doing some budget amendments if we have to correct some of the shortfalls in that fire department, but it's well needed. So I thank one and all for being here this evening, and shall see you next month. Any other questions or concerns to be brought before this council at this time? Hearing none, we stand adjourned at 7:16. Thank you all. Turn that dumb mic off.